With the 2023 season coming in less than 100 days, I am continuing my division predictions today with the NFC West. These rankings will be based on last season, off-season moves like the draft and free agent signings, and the schedule. Remember, these are just my opinions, so if yours differs, just let me know in the comments below, and I hope you enjoy. Coming in last this year for the NFC West, I have the Arizona Cardinals. This will probably come as no surprise, as the Cardinals are one of the worst franchises/teams in the league this upcoming season. They just fired Cliff Kingsbury, which I think it had to be done. And they seem to be clearing house and preparing for a tank season with hopes of a high draft pick next year. At the moment, the Cardinals are tied with the Texans for the lowest win total, over under at 5.5. Kyler Murray did tear his ACL in the second half of the 2022 season. This will most likely keep him out a number of games this year. I couldn't find out how many games, but I did see he will most likely be on the PUP list to begin the season. There will also be a new Call of Duty coming out in early November, so this could potentially set him back another month, give or take, depending on double XP. It is not all bad for the Cardinals, sorta. They did trade back in this year's draft with the Texans and received their first-round pick in next year's draft. And given the state of the Texans, this is projected to be a top 5 pick at the moment. That could change. They also drafted the best tackle prospect in the draft in Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State, who stands at a whopping 6'6", weighing 313 pounds, which is absolutely insane. I did love this pick, as a tackle outside of quarterback is the most important position in football in my opinion, and is always a fantastic investment as long as the pick pans out. Kyler has also been getting hurt in the last couple of seasons, so some added protection could go a long way. The Cardinals were 4-13 last season, which was 4th in the NFC West, and I see this happening again. When Kyler played, they were 3-8. Without him, they were 1-5 with a mix of Colt McCoy, Trace McSorley, and David Blough at quarterback, which is absolutely terrible. That shouldn't even be televised. Murray in his shortened season was 12th in completion percentage at 66.4 and 9th lowest interception percentage at 1.8. Arizona's defense as a unit ranked 31st, right ahead of the Houston Texans. They were the second worst defense in the league last year. They had the 9th worst pass defense and the 19th worst run defense, so overall it was about middle of the pack in terms of yards allowed. At the start of the season, it wasn't that great of a roster. If it wasn't for the Rams' whole debacle, they would have been the clear-cut joke of the division. They just recently released DeAndre Hopkins, who is their best offensive player, maybe even their best player outside of Kyler Murray due to cap issues and the poor season that lies ahead of them. I believe they did have some decent moves this offseason in free agency, with Kaiser White, Zach Pascal, and Kellen Beachum being signed. Once again, that is heavy on the decent. They really cleaned house, as they're obviously going to be a bad team this year, and why pay all those contracts if you just aren't going to win many games? Go for that top pick and potentially land yourself Caleb Williams in the 2024 draft. One thing I do want to talk about is Kyler Murray, and mainly just because much of the NFL discourse surrounding Kyler Murray is negative. I still think Kyler's a great quarterback. I think you can win a lot of games with him. You can even win some you shouldn't even be in because of him. I believe he's a top 10 quarterback, and when I say that, it's more like 8 to 10, and just had unfortunate luck of being drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. Regarding their coach, Jonathan Gannon, I don't expect too much out of him. His defenses were good statistically, but were very polarizing depending on who they were playing. The Gannon-led defenses were really good against below-average quarterbacks. They played in his tenure, but would get torched by any above-average starter. Like Derek Carr looked like Dan Marino against him in 2021. I think his completion percentage was like top 5 all time, with over 30 throws or something. I forget. I would have to check it, but it's just insane. Even make average look like great quarterbacks. The Eagles also had so much better defensive talent than the Cardinals do, so I can't see this ending well for him. This kind of feels like a bridge hire. They'll have 1 to 2 losing seasons with him and then get rid of him and hire someone to develop and grow with a rookie quarterback in the future, and would probably be an offensive-minded coach. Looking at the schedule for the season, I had the Cardinals winning 2 to 4 games. Coming in third place in the NFC West, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I really wish this division was more competitive, as I don't want to have the same predictions as everybody else, but the Seahawks and 49ers just have too large of a gap between them and the Rams and Cardinals. The Rams, just after winning a Super Bowl in 2022 with the all-in approach, they then followed up with one of the worst seasons from a reigning champ ever. The Rams went 5-12, taking third in the NFC West last year. There was a lot that contributed to the disappointing season that I want to discuss. The Rams, after the 2021 season, were not able to bring everybody back for another title run. They ended up losing Andrew Whitworth to retirement. Robert Woods was traded, Sonny Michel didn't re-sign, and Von Miller went to Buffalo, which was the biggest loss for them. The Rams also suffered from the injury bug, which can derail any team in the league, with injuries to Stafford, who missed 9 games, Allen Robinson, who, may I say, was an awful free agent signing. I really remember thinking Sean McVay was going to turn his career around, who missed 10 games, and Aaron Donald, who missed 11 games, and Cooper Kupp, who missed 9 games. The team in this past offseason also lost some more key pieces, including Leonard Floyd, Bobby Wagner, and dealing Jalen Ramsey. I think the Ramsey move proves they are aware that they're not contending and are ready to rebuild. If this season goes south and the future doesn't look too bright because they said F them picks, I can see Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, and Aaron Donald all retiring. The Rams' passing defense is 22nd in the league and 13th in rushing defense, which puts them towards below average to average on that side of the ball. The Rams' offense is what really brought them down, which makes sense with Stafford and Kupp injuries. The team was 27th overall. They were 27th in passing and 28th in rushing. This should improve with Stafford and Kupp both being healthy for the upcoming season. I really do like some of the Rams' star players. Stafford is around 9th or 10th best QB in the league. Donald is obviously the best defensive player, and Kupp could very well lead the league in catches and yards for wide receiver. And he's most likely to be top 5 in odds for Offensive Player of the Year. I also really like Sean McVay as a coach, and I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the game. But the unfortunate reality is the supporting cast is one of the worst in the league. I don't really like anything about their roster outside of their top players. I don't blame them, however, as they sacrificed 5 decent to good years for a Super Bowl and is 100% worth it. The ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. In my book, that is worth a couple of mediocre years to follow. They reached the pinnacle of football and had their celebrations and parades, and now they're paying it back, and that is completely okay. Looking at their schedule, I have the Rams winning 5 to 7 games this year. Coming in second place, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I really loved the Seahawks offseason. Just 1 year removed from trading Russell Wilson, the Seahawks have been an almost perfect rebuild. They didn't receive much from the Wilson trade in terms of players. The value is really in the picks they got. The Seahawks got Charles Cross, offensive tackle, in last year's draft, and Devon Witherspoon in this year's draft with the other first rounder. The Seahawks also got some decent role players as well on that. Pete Carroll is someone I was somewhat down on towards the end of the Wilson era. I was thinking either one of them has to go. I just figured they would have fired the 70-year-old head coach rather than the franchise quarterback. Ultimately, this worked out perfectly well for them, somewhat common Seahawks W. The Seahawks went 9-8 this past season and were second in the NFC West. I had them taking second again. This isn't because I don't think they got better, it's just the 49ers are another really good team. I really like the roster they built. On offense, they have great weapons surrounding Geno Smith with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Kenneth Walker, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. The defense also has some great players with the return of Bobby Wagner, Tariq Woolen, Quandre Diggs, and Jamal Adams, and now Devon Witherspoon. The secondary is a real chance to be one of the best in the league, and they're extremely young. My only critique of the roster is the pass rushers, with the exception of Nwosu, which I think are the most important defensive unit. But when your secondary is as good as theirs is or can be, it just gives them more time to rush the passer. The defense as a whole was 14th in passing and 30th in rush defense last season. They really got carved up on the ground last year, and this lost them a couple of winnable games. I don't think they'll be 30th again, but I just don't expect it to be a ton better. I see them being around 20 to 15. I do, however, expect their pass defense to move up into the top 10. The Seahawks offense was 11th in passing and 18th in rushing, so they were another middle-of-the-pack offense. This should also get better with the addition of JSN through this year's draft at 20th overall out of Ohio State. The reason I said this was an almost perfect rebuild is because of Geno Smith. Geno had an amazing season last year throwing the ball and earned himself a pretty big extension and resurrected his career. My 2 very minuscule issues is it was his best year of his career last year, so let's see him do it again, and he's 32 years old. If they had a 25-year-old quarterback, I'd say this rebuild is the ultimate blueprint for teams to follow, sort of like what the Eagles have done. I'm rooting for Geno, and I expect him to be pretty good this year again. I am excited to watch this team play this year and would like to see them even win a playoff game. After looking at their schedule, I have them winning 10 to 12 games this year. Coming in first place in the NFC West for the 2023 season coming up is the San Francisco 49ers, or the Santa Clara 49ers. The 49ers have been among the top of the NFC for a few consecutive seasons now, and I expect this to continue on into the 2023 season. The 49ers have one of the most entertaining training camp storylines coming up, with that being the quarterback competition. I cannot wait for this. Right now on their roster, they have Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, who's coming off of an injury, and former number 3 overall pick, which they traded 3 first-round picks in order to acquire Trey Lance. As a fan of football, I absolutely cannot wait for the stories and the media, the questions, the answers come out of that camp. I've heard that Purdy has began throwing and should be good by training camp, so my guess is the job is his to lose. Outside of the QB room, this roster is stacked. I mean, their offensive weapons include Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams. And yes, I'm counting left tackle Trent Williams as a weapon. Their defense is also stacked with guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Dre Greenlaw, and Hafunga. The 49ers offense ranked 13th in passing, 7th in rushing, and 6th overall as an offense. And this was without a constant QB. The team ranked 1st in total defense, being the 21st ranked pass defense and 2nd in rushing. The Niners also added their stacked front 7 by signing defensive tackle Javon Hargrave to a 4-year deal. I don't think there's really anyone arguing with the Niners winning the West. They're a class of their own. They might be favorites to win the NFC this year. There's really nothing that can derail them. As I would usually say a quarterback injury with any other team would, but with them it seems like you could throw anyone in there and they can have success. I see this team once again going to another NFC championship this year, and they have a good chance to make the Super Bowl. I really don't see them not making another deep playoff run and winning the West. Looking at their schedule, I have them winning 11 to 13 games this year. Those are my NFC West predictions for the 2023 season. I have the Cardinals taking 4th, the Rams 3rd, Seahawks 2nd, and 49ers 1st. I hate to have it the exact same way as the previous season because that rarely happens, but it's so hard to argue that there isn't a clear gap between each team here. Once again, if you have a different opinion, just let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one.